necessarily turn out to be so true.
Yes.
It's all true. And we celebrated the second show after post-legalization, too, just for the sake of being still excited and happy about it.
Yep. And we had Leon from All Per Plus, who is an organic nutrient manufacturer. Leon is originally from the Caribbean, and he still carries the accent. He has an interesting perspective on things. He's been in America for almost 20 years, but still views it, with a different eye.
He has an organic insecticide that it works, and it would pass the testing that's mandated now with the new commercial system.
Primarily against mites, right? So.
All right, so let's ask this question: is it still? Are we still excited about cannabis in Michigan so far? And if so, why? And is it official? And if not, when?
I'm excited about cannabis in Michigan. Right now, we've seen prosecutors dropping cases all across the state. Now, we would hope that it happened, but because there was no mandatory requirement for that in the proposal, there was no guarantee that would go down. But now we've seen Kalamazoo prosecutors, Genesee County, David Layton, multiple other counties where they've elected to no longer pursue charges against people for minor cannabis offenses. And in one case, it dismissed 6 felonies in a single case for Chris Martinez, a friend of ours from the west side of the state.
All right, let's talk about that. I think that's we discussed this a little bit last time. It's come to our attention. This case, and we talked about it, and it may have been originally misinterpreted what had happened. I happen to know now that the attorney on the case and the prosecutor in the case even was commented on the story because as this was going down, the Allegan County prosecutor was the first one to seemingly act on Proposal 1. The day afterwards, Chris Martin was his name? Martinez was in court and in his own mind concluded and spoke to the press it must be because of Prop 1. I think at some point later on the county prosecutor in Allegan said, no. This case was planned to be dismissed anyways. The decision was made a long time ago. We were just waiting to that particular court date to have the order entered. It happened to be the day after Prop 1 passed. And it's interesting because I know that I've had some conversations with that prosecutors up in that area, and they all are aware that any action that they're doing is going to be commented on and reported on in the press. The follow-up to the Allegan County story is that prosecutor doesn't want to be seen as the kind super pro. She's going to evaluate on a case-by-case basis. Mm-hmm. The only other takeaway I would have, because I do agree that it's nice seeing it happen.
6 felonies dropped all at once, and it was just.
Why were they going to be dropped before?
There was an evidentiary issue regarding something else. I talked to.
Sounds like
listen,
a convenient excuse.
Yeah,
that very well may be.
She doesn't want to get blamed for being soft on crime, so she drops him for the right reason, but she doesn't want to admit it. Right?
It's good strategy.
She did, right. And I would say this, that his case in particular is important to really determine because the allegations were having an unlicensed facility. There was, CI buys. I have a similar case using the same kind of investigative techniques to allege certain crimes as well. But those kind of cases, the deliveries with remuneration are not necessarily protected by Prop 1. We would agree on that.
No, I wouldn't agree with that at all.
Do you think that they are protected by Prop 1?
I think that the Prop 1 turns that into, if it's not habitual and for commercial purpose or involves violence, it takes it down to a misdemeanor with no jail time. I'd say that makes Prop 1 very effective.
Commercial purpose yet to be...
It has to be habitual, too, so that means...
All right, well, they got 6... I'm not talking about my guy, we just use someone hypothetically. Because I do want to draw this distinction. I would agree that prosecutors are saying, in fact, I had one say to me, I went in and dismissed all the possession cases, unequivocally. Use cases, unequivocally, right? And you would argue and think that any cases involving possession with intent to deliver, like an overgrow, excess, should fall into this category, usable or not usable. If it was from the plants, then you're talking degrees, but now it's from a medical grow. But that's not a leap automatically, right? Because I have cases, but
it's not mandatorily required, right? Which is why it's not uniform across the state.
And the argument would be, it's not retroactive. We're not mandated to. I think that they all know that if the situation arises, cases pending right now that go to trial in January or February or March. People, maybe different view in the state of Michigan, maybe a different view that the jury, and maybe that's
tough to get a jury seated that'll be
right.
convicted.
So, but I'm saying to you, I still have pending cases that involve. I do think that there's a distinction in how the prosecutors might look at this, but I think I would agree with you that yes, to the extent that there has been prosecutors that have been willing to come out and utilize Prop 1 as a basis to get cases off their docket, yes, you've got. But it's
hundreds of cases in the Kalamazoo issue. For example, MLive reported the prosecutors planning on dropping hundreds of cases.
I don't. That's great, and I think that's a fantastic. But that may be a particular prosecutor that's looking for and wants to. I don't know that it's uniform across, but that's what I'm saying. And one of the good things we're seeing. I say this. Let's just keep an eye out for the distinctions of possessions and uses. Probation violations, right? Because that would seemingly be not.
If you're on probation for one of those crimes, you would think that you'd get an opportunity to have that. I don't know how the probation situation is, whether it's waived or whether they're forgiven or what it would be. I'm not sure what the legal.
Right. So for a possession case, and then they're going to be punished for or sent to jail because they've got marijuana in their system when it's now lawful as opposed to the punishment of it'd be like having a drink, right? But now they might be.
They can ban alcohol.
Sure, they can. Unequivocally, but it certainly is not. I don't think it's got the same. With the legalization, it definitely puts a different dynamic on it.
When we talked about reasons that we were excited about legalization, that's certainly one, and that's the one that I think of immediately because I'm seeing immediate benefits from this. But when I also see what it means for prosecutors to drop these cases, for the individual clients is one thing, but as a reflection of what our society thinks about cannabis and how they want to, de-emphasize its criminality, I think that's a big benchmark. I think that's, and of course, it's one of those things. It's an unintended benefit. We would hope that would have happened, but we couldn't mandate it in the rules. So, hopefully, going forward, we not only have courts that are more friendly, but we also have city governments that are more willing to do things like line up for the MMFLA program.
It could be a number of different reasons. I do think an inevitable consideration, if it's not reality now but will be in the future, is that seating jurors of the general population is going to begin to accept it as being lawful and much more difficult to embrace as a crime, right? But we have to get past the simple possessions, right? But in these existing pending cases, especially deliveries, and I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic. If that is a carved out area that will continue to be prosecuted, if it's seen as not regulated or competing with the existing regulations, or far outside of the non-remunerated transfers, something to that effect. We'll see. But I mean, that's the most interesting unknown at this point. That's kind of where there's some open-ended leadership to dictate, more likely than not, kind of.
Right. That's the advantage of having Dana Nessel in as the Attorney General. One of the problems that we had with the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act was that it was unevenly enforced throughout the entire state of Michigan. Some counties were this way, some counties were that way. And as a patient, you were sort of victimized by the law where you resided. And in this instance, the freedoms established by Prop 1 will be uniform. Everyone will get a handle on those. But what we just described, prosecutors dropping cases and that more pro-marijuana friendly attitude, that is going to be on a county-by-county basis. Some prosecutors in rural areas are still going to stick to their guns, Michael.
I agree 100%. And the point I was trying to make is, how do we bring them around? How do we have this consistent? I would say if there's a chance to do it, it would be by leadership in the executive offices, right? Mm-hmm. If the governor is beginning processes of taking steps to pardon or some quick access to expungements, just hypothetically, it has been part of her first thing spoken about. We know the Attorney General, likewise, is endorsing said program. Mm-hmm. We know that the combination of these three things, Prop 1, Dana Nessel, and Gretchen Whitmore, who all we identify as pro-cannabis candidates, it's a mandate for them, these administrations, to fulfill the voters' demands, right? Which is to facilitate these things. And so far, so good. It seems like there's intentions to do so. And I would suggest that if this is the direction the state goes, how stupid is a prosecutor in Alcona going to look?
Right.
That's what I'm saying. That's the way you bring them around. That's leadership. You know what I mean? And screw them on the local level, arguably. If the rest of the state is going that direction from the executive branch down, the counties will look like idiots.
Sure.
That's what I'm
The
saying.
whole state's not going to instantaneously turn to making this a smooth transition and supporting it.
I would agree.
It's
and
a
I
process.
think, but I would think that under a shooty regime, it would be like a stalemate, like a battle of attrition.
A Shooty Leonard thing would be rough.
Before
right?
some of these counties would cave.
Yeah.
I'm saying
Shooty
though,
told us. Shooty gave us the demonstration of what
correct.
happens already. So.
But I'm saying if in the alternative we had like after a year or a year and a half in, all of a sudden marijuana cases are, not just being removed, but they're being, pardons and convictions being, if that's actually a reality that takes place and there's some mechanism, the idea that these other prosecutors could sustain their slow to turn over is going to happen faster. You know what I mean? Like there's no way they can sustain that. Political pressure and by that leadership will, I think, help that evolutionary process.
One of the things that Dana Nessel could do as Attorney General is she could state, in these particular circumstances, for these particular types of crimes, the state of Michigan is not willing to provide legal support for county-level enforcement of those particular things. Oftentimes, as we saw in Chesterfield Township, county prosecutors rely on support from the Attorney General's office in order to effect prosecutions of certain crimes. And if the Attorney General's office just refuses to support county prosecutors that continue to go after these crimes that would normally not be considered a big deal anymore, that's one way in which she could lead by example and lead, by direction.
110%. I can tell you of a specific scenario which is almost ridiculous when you think about it, but I mean, she doesn't appear to me when I know her, but a woman who's literally a grandmother in Oscar County, wife of a activist for many, many years, had a little compassion club kind of situation, and was, investigated and was being prosecuted by the Mayo or Oscoda County prosecutor. And at some point in time, sought the assistance of the Attorney General's office. So one day I'm there and with this county prosecutor, and all of a sudden the Attorney General that I'm fighting this other case then shows up. What are you doing? And she's like, it's kind of embarrassing for the prosecutor because she said, well, she asked us for help in the case and we're here. And I'm thinking to myself, this, like Camorra law, required your entire county to reach out. And
you are mighty, Michael.
And what's the standard? Like, what's the threshold? Mm-hmm. She said, anybody that asks, we are there to prosecute your marijuana case for you. In fact, it's been going on in this regard to the extent that the prosecutor of the county no longer shows up.
And isn't it true that the Attorney General's office would keep the prosecution going even way past the ability to have any kind of a result that makes sense for them? In other words, they keep on pressing the issue even though it's very likely that they're not going to win.
Well, I'll tell you what's I'll tell you what's odd is that they did try to resolve it in a way that may be tenable, but the Iosca prosecutor, Oscoda, what is it?
Oscoda County?
Mayo.
Oh, in Mayo, okay.
Is that what that is? Where is it?
No.
Yeah, it's Oscoda, I think.
Okay.
Whatever. I don't know.
I don't think it is.
Well, help me then.
I'm not sure what county. Isn't Mayo and Genesee County?
No.
Oh, Clio is. I'm sorry, Clio. They rhyme, so.
Mayo, Clio? Anyways.
Clio or Mayo?
Euro.
It would appear as if the county prosecutor is making the decisions about how to resolve it or not, because the Attorney General said, hey, how about a blah, 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 blah. And it said, well, I'll talk to my client about it. And then they said, too bad we can't do it. The county prosecutor said, it's not off. I mean, this is the kind of, like you just go in there and fight with Camorra and something. But we'll see what happens. I mean, it's so absurd.
The end result is they continue fighting it, even though there's an opportunity to resolve it.
Well, I told them that that was their last chance to dismiss the case. We're not doing anything other than.
So the prosecutor had to call in the Attorney General's office to try and bully.
I don't even know. They just showed up one
Wow.
day. They just showed up one day, and I was like, "What's going on? Why are you here?" He's like, "Well, they needed some help." And they called.
They needed a hand.
And now
Michael was kicking their ass all over the place. They didn't know what to do.
I can't even tell you what happened.
So they called the state.
They tapped out.
Asked for some
Just
help.
take a couple things that go up.